Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lessons on Advice, the podcast where four young financial advisors share their journey, challenges, and the lessons we've learned along the way. I'm Ben Butler, and as ever, I'm joined by Will Hartley, Anna Evans, and Adam Tweedie. If you've been following us, you know we've been taking a deep dive into what it takes to break into those initial years in the financial planning profession. Now, today we're doing something a little bit different. Ever wondered what a typical day looks like as an advisor navigating this dynamic industry? Well, you're in luck. It's almost if I've pre-planned that. In this episode, it's titled A Day in the Life, and we're going to be pulling back the curtain on our daily routines, sharing everything from morning rituals, client interactions, and how we balance administrative tasks with personal development. But before we do all that, let's catch up. It's been a couple of eventful weeks since we last spoke, and I'm going to start off with Adam, hasn't it? What's been going on with you?
I've heard something exciting's happened with you, but first
Yeah,
of
we're
all,
not. Yeah, let's start with you.
let's start with me. Yeah, okay. Someone else will bring that to their attention. So getting married on Saturday, so it's been a week of madness and trying to get everything tied up before then. I have mentioned that I might need to take the laptop on honeymoon, so I'm not sure how that will go down. But no, we'll see. So I've got 10 days of relaxation coming up.
So what's the plan? Where are you going on honeymoon?
It's actually a mini moon, which I didn't know existed. So that's to Mallorca. And then next year, we're heading off to South Africa for a couple of weeks. So that'll be the big one.
I think they're really common now, aren't they? The mini moons. You need something to get away straight after the wedding. But
exactly.
want something quite nice.
Yeah, it's such the build up and stuff. It's crazy, isn't it? And then when you get to like that wedding weekend, you don't want that lull period. It's nice to just go away somewhere and just have some time, just the two of you. So no, well done. Nice.
That's it. I had an annual review this morning, came back to the house, I was cutting ribbons, then I had to go out to another meeting. So it's been a fun week.
Oh, the Wedmin, didn't we? That's what it's called, isn't it? Yeah, Wedmin.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah,
So
wedding
what?
admin.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, Wedmin.
What's that? Just
All
wedding
the prep
admin.
you have to do before the wedding. Should we get on to why you're asking about this?
I don't concern myself with any of those kind of things, to be honest. So yeah, I know I did get engaged. It's probably the weekend after the last time we recorded. So it's all happening over here, isn't it? So just you next, Wilson. No pressure. We need content for these episodes anyway. So do us a favour.
Well, I just had a lovely holiday in the sun on my own. So there we go. But no, that was getting used to the going on holiday, coming back from holiday, and everything that comes with that, and all the emails and everything that comes in while you're off. That just throws you off a bit. But yeah, and then all of a sudden it feels like a distant memory. But there we go.
I think it is a cardinal sin to bring a laptop on holiday. To be fair,
Adam, that
doesn't feel right. I did it last time, and I only did it by the second week. To be fair, just because I was getting a little bit bored by sitting by the pool and doing all those kind of things. I took a client call and they just couldn't believe I picked up. To be honest with you.
I always try and tick off the emails on my phone, but just sometimes, if you can open up your laptop, I feel like you can just get it done and it will save you to, hours of work when you come home. I don't think it's a bad thing personally, but, 10, 15 minutes in the morning with a coffee, it's not too bad.
No, I mean, yeah, I'm guilty too. I tend to take mine away with me. You're right, while the little one's having a little snooze and we're just sat by the pool, sometimes I'm like, oh, just quickly answer that one. Yeah.
Especially if you're waiting on a pension transfer coming through, you'll be checking it every few hours.
The excitement.
Carnage. That's it. So that's what we get up to when we're on holiday, working. By the sounds of it, what does a day in the life look like? And I haven't pre-warned you about this. There's going to be some sort of punishment if anybody says the phrase, "Well, never 2 days are the same. It's always different." Okay. It's just a phrase that makes me cringe because everybody says it. So what's the point? I haven't worked out what that punishment is going to be yet. So don't fall foul of it because it could be horrible. will to throw you in the firing line.
Yeah.
Start us off. What does the average day look like?
Oh, do you know what? I'm glad you warned me then. That's me crossing out my first phrase. Boom. I think I tend to, the start of the day, it's all about diary management and looking at what you've got in, what time it's in, because time likes to run away with us. But also looking a bit at the full week and even the next week each morning, because it tends to change and you don't want to be having a conversation with a client trying to get them booked in and not know what you've got coming up and how busy you are. So that's how I start my day. And I think the bit that I've got to get used to with diary management, I literally everything's in my diary now, down to admin and everything. And I think that's the bit that sort of surprised me the most, considering I came from literally working in the admin team for financial advisors. I can't believe how much admin advisors do. I never used to give them credit for it. But I think that was probably the biggest sort of shock. But I think, it's nice to have mixtures. So it's nice to try and have a mix of your day of admin and client work. I'm not one of those people who likes to have a full day of admin one day a week, because I know some people work it like that, but I think that sounds like I'd rather put pins in my eyes. I like to keep a mix of speaking with clients and doing the admin side of things. Also trying to keep, one networking event a week where possible, from sort of 2 points. Firstly, to keep, yourself known if you're doing it locally in the local area, but more importantly, I think I found if I have a week or two off networking, suddenly you start to go a bit shy again, you get clammy hands, and I think it's always good to sort of keep in touch with being on your toes a little bit. So I like to keep up with that, and then the flexibility is massive. I mean, I don't know about you guys, when I first started evening appointments, it was like, yeah, go on, I'll do them, perfect, everything and anything, get it booked in, and then I think it was at the end of maybe my third or fourth week, and I've done 4 12-hour days here with meetings, and they probably all could have, done lunch times. It was actually one of the other advisors. He caught me speaking with a client, and I think I must have said, right, I can book you in next week. Do you want an evening then? And he went, well, now you know why your evenings are so busy, because you've suddenly become, it's your default. So I think it's definitely finding a balance with that, which I'm saying I'm getting better at, maybe gradually, doing the odd one here and there. But that flexibility of going, well, like this morning was an early start and last night was a late evening, so going to the gym for this lunch, just to keep that variety, I think it's good.
So when you talk about these client meetings, for those that aren't familiar with how it works, when you're trying to stay organized, what are you organizing? What are the key components of your day that you need to arrange?
Yeah, for me it's, there's, starting from the start of the client journey, it's those first client calls of, this is someone who needs a chat about pensions or investments or whatever it might be. And for me, I always put them in for the afternoon, because firstly, you can get older people in the afternoon more likely, but also because it's the fun bit of the day. So, it's the bit that sort of keeps you going. So if you've got a morning of admin, no, I've got that in the afternoon, is quite good. And then obviously, then from there it goes to a first meeting. So sort of half an hour before that meeting, you need time to prep all the documents that you're going to go through with them. Make sure, we use a sort of fact-finding tool that lets the client fill some things in before the meeting. So if they have, even though you ask them to do it a few days in advance, they'll be sod's law, they'll have filled it in 5 minutes before. So you need to make sure you know what they've done, otherwise it's been a waste of everyone's time. And then on the back of that, typing everything up and making sure all the sort of first meeting and fact finding, all those great conversations you have all been done right. I am unfortunately a sucker for paper and pen, and I need to get better at typing. But it's just I know. So
Wowee.
I need to be dragged kicking and screaming, I think, into a keyboard and mouse.
You wait till the end of this podcast. I think we'll be dragging you through the
Honestly.
AI with us.
Well, I think
I'm
that's,
with you with pen and paper. I much prefer it.
I think when you speak, I think it's different if you're on a Teams meeting with a client. You can get away with typing a bit easier, but when you're face to face, I just think it feels quite forced.
Yeah.
It's pen and paper. Although saying that, then that's probably why my time spent so much on admin, because I'm typing it all up. So it's sort of, it's catch-22. And then obviously before your next meeting, it's preparing suitability letters and making sure applications and illustrations and everything are sort of as they should be. So yeah, that's sort of the typical week, I suppose. I tend to work from home. For me, it's in spats here and there. I like to be in the office, mainly because we get a lot of walk-ins, a lot of call-ins, and I think if you can act quick on them, they're more likely to become something.
Nice.
And it's just every day I'll go for a walk around the local area and have a chat with some people. Just keep people knowing you're there, I suppose.
Typical
So yeah,
Northerners.
what was that?
Typical Northerners just going for a nice chat, just walking out the street and having a nice chat. You don't get that in London.
No, exactly. Keep it.
I think if
I
I
I
smiled
honestly
at someone to like start having a chat, they'd probably like, "What's wrong with her?"
In these northern market towns, I mean, we got told you're not allowed to shut on. Apparently, this is our local town. We don't necessarily follow it, but at where our office is, they don't shut on bank holiday Fridays. So obviously, the other year when the Queen passed away, and it was I think was it a anniversary of her coronation, there was a couple of Friday bank holidays. They never shut the shops in that town because it's market day and the market's open on a Friday, so everyone's got to be in. And it is very much a small town sort of feel to it. So it is quite nice when you're wandering about seeing the greengrocer and things.
So you said at one point you were shocked by the amount of admin that you've got to do, even though you went through that kind of sort of you rose up the ranks within the profession, didn't you? I still get shocked at the amount of admin that I'm supposed to do, not necessarily the amount of admin I actually do, but what I'm supposed to do. I don't think many people think that. I think people think we're driving around, going seeing people, and that's pretty much the job. Few conversations, few emails. That might be the case with more experienced guys that've got admin support, power planning support, and all of that. But the amount of, I'd say it's probably more. I spend more time doing admin than I do actually face-to-face clients.
Oh,
And that kind of back office work, isn't it?
And even down to the, parts of the admin is hounding clients when they need it as well. And, you spend more time chasing people than you do speaking with people half the time. I don't know if you guys find that as well, but, most of my week will be spent chasing people and you send 10 emails to get one back. But that's part of the job, isn't it? So
It's so true. It can take up, I think, it takes up majority of my week just doing admin. And I'm one of those people, Will, that I dedicate, that's my admin day. Don't put a client meeting in that day. I'm having an admin day. But that's because I just feel so much better when I come to the end of that day and I'm like all of that was done today. And I'm just feeling like I can just go and have some nice chats with some people and then start all over again next week. But I think it's tough. There is so much more admin than we think there is, isn't there? And when we talk about admin, it's like pulling reports or, you're right, putting stuff on the systems and making sure everything's up to date and, getting everything you need ready for compliance teams and etc. And, we're a regulated industry. We have a lot of things that we need to make sure is accurate in order for us to do this process, and therefore there's going to be a lot of admin that comes from it. And you're right, if you don't have admin support, which most new advisors I suppose don't have, you do kind of sit there and go, oh, this is a lot, isn't it? And it takes up so much time.
And we've had a really big wake up call on what happens if you don't do your admin with the ongoing advisors scandal. I guess you can call it a scandal of what happens if you don't do it, if you don't document that you've had an advice review and all of that. I've heard from secondhand accounts of a few people that haven't done it, and it's an absolute mess. And they've really been stung for it. So now more than ever shows how important it is, just as much as giving good advice to be shown to have done it as well. So yeah, cool. I keep calling you Will today, Adam. I'm really sorry. Sorry, were you going to chime in?
No, I just from this morning I had a client review, and I know what you're saying about admin is time consuming, and ultimately it's not when you're writing business and you're not out seeing clients, so it's not as exciting. But I also think when you've spoken to a couple or a family or an individual, looked at everything, got it all on paper for me and Will, or on the system for Ben and Anna. It's quite nice to look at the figures and kind of work backwards, and that's when it's quite satisfying, really putting pen to paper and starting to work out how we can help these people. So yeah, it's time consuming, but also quite satisfying.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Adam, how do you start your day?
Varies. So during our sort of academy process, we went through something called a model week, which I thought would be exactly how my week would look. So I'll share it with you, and it's essentially a model week. So what it would look like when your client meetings are booked in, when your admin's booked in. So I was thinking, yeah, this will be perfect. That's great. I know exactly what my week will look like. And I think it was about 12 hours after I left the academy, everything totally changed. So it doesn't work like that, but it is quite a good structure to start with. You know, set this day aside for client meetings, set this morning aside for admin, etc. But yeah, so for my day, primarily starts with a dog walk where I do genuinely plan out my next kind of few hours. So I know roughly what I'll be doing, I know what clients I'll be seeing, I know what admin I need to input, but during that walk, I try and get out the house really early. That's when I'll be walking, understanding, and sort of planning for that day properly, which does really help. I'm not not a type of person that would wake up and kind of roll into the office. I need a good few hours to kind of prepare for that day. Another thing that I tend to do if I have a kind of rubbish day, which I'm sure everyone in this podcast has, probably more often than not, I would say, when you're first starting out. My mentor actually told me this, just to totally disregard the day, don't dwell on it, do something productive at night. So I tend to, like Will, go to the gym at night, get a workout and feel good about yourself again, and just rinse and repeat for the next day. So I've had some days that have been, a bit of business that didn't go ahead that you were expecting to go ahead. Your whole month is back down to zero essentially. But yeah, I think it's just not dwelling on those kind of bad times as such can really help.
It's going to turn into one of those other podcasts in a minute, but if I dwell on it too much. But I agree with you. I think exercise and nutrition and lots of water, I know it sounds like those things are just so important, aren't they? Like, I always have my big 2 litre bottle with me of water every day, because it's, you're right. If you're having a bad day, actually sometimes just getting out and going to the gym and just running it off on a treadmill, or I like a spin class. Like, you just got to get it all out of your system, and then just try and start again fresh the next day. I think it's a really good way of doing it, and just making sure you're always kind of looking after yourself essentially as well, right?
Yeah. I think as well, if you don't want to be that typical salesman or woman, but if you're in a spin class and you've had a rubbish day, there is a chance that you'll meet someone you can potentially help. Getting out there is key. You can't speak to anyone within your home office. So I do think getting out there is key for our job, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really easy to sort of neglect your health, particularly in the early bits where you're really busy. You're not busy because you've got lots of client meetings. It's just because you're new to it, everything takes you that bit longer to work out. I've got one of those minds. If I find a task that I find really interesting, I'll just do it without really realizing, what the time is. It could be 10 o'clock in the evening. Oh my God, I've spent all evening on that. But it's just having those little things near you. So, a massive thing of water to make sure you stay hydrated, or, eyes are getting a bit sore. That should be the click for, I need to get away from the screen and just walk around a little bit. The fitness thing is massive. You've got to try and get out. Otherwise, if you're not healthy, your mind's not going to be healthy. You're not going to do a good job. So it's finding that balance.
And like Will was saying, there are times where we can, before we know it, we've done, multiple 12-hour days and, long days and stuff. And I think sometimes that can really burn you out if you keep going at that pace. So it is really important sometimes just to take a step back and just say, like, okay, maybe I need an hour off this morning, or, maybe I need to just take some time for me later on. Yeah. Go for a walk or go to the gym, or whatever it is that, helps you. is so important, because you're right, we can just burn ourselves out. And we're young, we're excited about this new industry, and we're all really excited to get in it and get going and kind of build these businesses, but it can't be to the detriment of your health, and you've got to just keep going, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, like walking just, if I've had some days you just get so overwhelmed, there's a million things to do, and it's actually better just to stop and get away from the screen, get out there, and then revisit it if you want to later, but don't feel guilty if you don't revisit it. I think I'm quite bad for that, and feeling guilty if I'm not sitting in front of a computer, but I could be sitting for 2 hours and in reality doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we've heard from Will on what he does to keep himself busy throughout the week. Lots spoken about the importance of not working too hard, and there you go. There's the headline for today: do not work too hard. Anna, what can you do, or what have you learned to make yourself more efficient in those tasks that do take seemingly forever? Because we could work constantly. If that was an opportunity, we could do that. We could find something to fill our time with. But what do you do to make things a little bit more efficient?
So I do have weekly tasks that I set myself, and I try not to have more than 3. Actually, I met a really, really lovely business coach that talked me through this, and it was incredible. But she kind of said to me, focus on those 3 things, and if you achieve more than those 3 things that week, you've gone incredible. Okay, yeah, I've overdone it, but you always have to keep those 3 things precise. And you're right. I think sometimes there are days where I can get into something and I'm there 2 hours later and I'm like, oh God, I'm still going at this. Like, how do I get myself into a better motivation? And I go back to my list and I go back to my 3 things and I say, okay, is what I'm doing right now helping me achieve those 3 things? And if it isn't, and I'm just procrastinating, or I'm just, on the phone to Ben for hours, hours on end, I do sit there and I go, right, enough's enough. Get yourself a cup of tea, get back to the grind, have a look and think about what it is you actually want to achieve. And if that isn't working to help you achieve that, then you're right, take a break or come back to the drawing board and rethink how you're going to tackle that objective, because it's so important to kind of keep yourself on some sort of track, because we can get so bogged down with all the details, and it can start getting messy, and before you know it, you're like, what was I even trying to do? And we all have these type of minds. I don't know about you guys, like an email comes and I'm like, oh, quickly just respond to that. Or, oh, I've just got into that. Well, that's just made me think of that, but maybe I'll just quickly do that. And before you know it, you have gone on like rabbit holes, all over the place.
Sorry, I was just about to say, can you give an example of one of the kind of 3 things that you would have on your list, just as a rough idea?
Yeah, so one of them is if I'm going to a networking event that week, I'll have something like, okay, I want to speak to 3 people at that networking event, and those three people have to be a solicitor or an accountant or someone that I think's gonna whatever. And I try and keep that number low. It's not always 3, sometimes it's 2 or even 1, like if it depends how I'm feeling that day. But that's one of them, and kind of just going, at that event I'm going to do this. The other thing could be like, what else have I put on there recently? I'm going to send off X amount of LOAs this week, and it'll be something that I know they're coming in, or I know I've got admin job to do, and it'll be like, okay, I will achieve that LOA this week. I will like review that account and start putting together a plan, or but you're right. Sometimes even now, as I'm talking, I'm going, I'm probably putting too much detail on them. They've got to be precise, because if they're not, you're probably going to go, oh, but I'll just do this. Oh, but I'll just do that. And you're off on a tangent. So just keeping what it is that you're trying to achieve really precise. I'm going to speak to 2 people this week, and that's going to lead to a coffee.
Yeah. And do you tend to write them the day before?
Every Monday morning.
Every Monday, okay.
So every Monday morning, it's the first thing I do on a Monday morning. is write down what I'm going to achieve that week. I'll be honest with you, sometimes I get to, some of you guys know, I only work a 4-day week because I have, I'm really lucky enough that being self-employed means I can have Fridays off with my little boy. But yeah, I get to Thursday evening and I'm like, oh God, like I've got, still these things I wanted to achieve this week and I didn't get. And you can't, I think the point is when it gets to the end of the week, the other thing you can't do is dwell on the fact that you didn't achieve them.
Yeah.
In actual fact, when I get to the end of the week, I say, okay, I may not have achieved them, but what did I achieve this week? And write down those small wins. Sometimes I write down, oh, I smashed it on Mum Life this week. I did 4 loads of washing, or, managed to get Jacob to eat his carrots. Sometimes it has to be as small as that, but it just is that one thing that makes me go, okay, I have achieved something this week, or I have fulfilled.
Is Jacob your husband or your child?
He's my child. Sometimes Mark doesn't eat his carrots either, who can we get it today? But yeah, that's my work.
I spoke to my mentor one day when I just had a rubbish day. I was literally finished. I didn't want to do this anymore. And he said, he was like, you just cannot dwell on it. And he was talking about when he first started, and he said, my diary was literally blank for 2 weeks at a time. No meetings, didn't even have admin to do because I had no clients. And now he's, successful at the other end of his career, ready to retire and exit for, a nice chunky sum, I'm sure. But yeah, I think it's so key to not dwell on it, which I was quite bad at, if I'm being open and honest. Kind of beating yourself up after a rubbish day, but you can't do that if you're in this type of industry.
And I think you're right. At this stage, there's probably going to be more bad days than good, right? Because we're all still very much learning and figuring everything out still.
Yeah.
So, there's probably going to be those days where you do have to keep saying to yourself, it's okay, we're going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing through because, a lot of people don't stay in this industry and they do leave quite early because it is tough. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right?
Yeah. Just have to show some resilience.
Yeah.
I think part of it as well is separating between taking yourself out of it, making it not personal and not emotional. They've not said no to you, they've said no to whatever you're proposing. And I think when I first started, that's probably what I struggle with the most, where every no just feels like a bit of a sting to the ego, I think. But
yeah,
it's just once you get used to separating that, it's easier to not dwell, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all kind of, bog ourselves down on the bad news, can't we? And what do we do from here? I'm not achieving this, or it's not working the way I want it to. The other thing I really think is important, and I do this on almost all of my client calls, is I come off the call and say, what was good about that call and what was bad? What do I think didn't work? So if, for instance, and I'll be honest, at the beginning, there was a lot of them going, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. Or why on earth why did that come up? Or all of those kind of moments. But yeah, quite often I have written down, I really liked that happened. I really liked that conversation we had. Let's try and or that I liked that I mentioned this and they took it well. And, one size doesn't always fit all, but it is important that you kind of learn from things that you don't think went well and how you would change that for the next one to make sure that you get a different outcome next time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember when I first started going on
things that didn't quite go well, would it be like speaking too much, or what sort of examples would you say? Because I find out, not that I expect every call to be flawless, but I'd find it quite hard to kind of self-critique a call straight after.
Yeah, it would just be sort of like, I mean, I can probably be quite harsh on myself if I am honest, but I've done it on this, we've walked off these calls and I've gone, oh God, why did I say that on the podcast? We all have those moments, and yeah, sometimes it can just be a conversation or something that I said. We're all human. We're still figuring this out, and I'll be like, oh, I don't think they took, that I was explaining that very well, or I didn't feel like it took me a couple of times to explain something. So I kind of look back and I go, well, why did it take me a couple of times to explain it? What didn't I do right? And
Mhm.
what was it that I did that third time that made them understand it?
Yeah.
And so therefore it's like, okay, well, that was, that worked. So maybe use that again next time, and that scenario or that version of talking about it. And I just think that's so important because, yeah, that's just one of them, right? What else could I think of?
I think when
Usually it is like, Anna, why did you say
can't
that?
hear me. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one hear me.
Yeah, or please stop talking.
Yeah. When I first started in a bank as like a mortgage agent, wasn't even a mortgage broker, and I had no idea about all the different types of mortgages because I never had my CMAP or anything. And a client was asking about a property. So we used to get bizarre requests, would you finance this property that's next to a river? Would you, finance a property that's up a mountain? All these types of things. And someone was asking, do you finance property under a bridge? Little did I know it was a bridging loan. I jumped across to the mortgage brokers and said, do we offer mortgages on properties for under a bridge? And the mortgage broker was thinking, are you sure it's not a bridging loan? And so I had to go and ask the client if that's what he meant, which was quite embarrassing.
We all have those moments though, don't we? I've had situations like that before as well, where clients said something and you automatically presume what you're talking about, and they're like, no, and then you're like, and then as soon as they explain, you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, it went off on a tangent.
Yeah, I was also reading out some some illnesses on a critical illness policy, and some of them are really long and complicated.
Yeah.
And I tried to pronounce this particular illness, and I just couldn't say it, so I just had to, I was like, and there's the list. You can have a read. Could not pronounce this particular illness, and I also think we've lost Ben, unfortunately. So
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I think that with that pronunciation thing, every time I do a medical data capture, I always have to warn before I start because I struggle with. I don't know if it's the Yorkshire accent or what it is, but especially certain medical words, there's just no chance. And I always have to preface every data capture I do that I'm guarantee I'm going to say at least 3 things wrong. But and I'll probably have to spell them out at some point for them as well. But
one of my first protection cases was with a doctor. And oh goodness, I had to laugh by the end because I just said, she kept correcting me every time I mentioned the word and got it wrong. And it was nice because I think it cleared the air a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I went, look, these are very complex cases, and I'm sure you understand these words way better than I do.
Yeah.
So I said, if there's anything in there that you're confused about, then let me know and I can look into it. But I was like, if I don't get the name right, then I apologise.
It's good when you're advising those types of policies and it's a doctor who probably deals with, horrible things like this day in, day out, and they can, I'm sure your advice was spot on, but it almost probably sold itself just because of who they deal with on a day-to-day basis, which
it certainly did help me in learning some of the words.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right, so we definitely have lost Ben, haven't we?
Can you not hear me?
He's back.
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me? Fantastic. Oh my God, I've just been panicking. Not panicking, just stressing for the past 5 minutes or whatever it's been.
We had a nice conversation without you there.
Yeah.
I just wondered why everyone kept interrupting me, to be honest with you. I was just like, that's quite rude. Adam, seriously. Come on, mental manners. Yeah, okay.
Just in time, Ben, because it's your turn.
Yeah.
It's my turn. Oh, what? Talk about day in life. I'm I'm not a very organised person. I am, and I'm not. When I'm organised, I'm hyper organised. When I'm not, I'm hyper disorganised. In terms of starting my day, well, every day is exactly the same because most days typically are. You just wake up, have a look at the calendar, see what I'm preparing myself for. Typically, the kind of meetings are going to be either a client call, usually discovery call, speak to someone for the first time. There's not really too much you can do about it. There may be a couple of sentences about what they're looking to do. I think that most people just say, I want to talk about pensions, or I want to talk about retirement planning or something like that, unless it's like a really hyper niche sort of situation that people find themselves in. I think it's like how we talked about the last episode, how very few people wake up and realize, oh yeah, I need to speak to a financial advisor about this. It's normally, or probably should do it. It sounds like something people my age will do. So say I've got one of those in the morning, like I did this morning. That was actually quite a good one, where they realized they had an old personal pension that they hadn't looked at, and they were a member of public sector schemes, so there's nothing really too much to do there. But it was that private pension just been sitting there, and thought, should I put some more money into it? How much do I need to put into it? Am I going to have enough for when I do retire? And we had a quick look at it, and it was 40% equity, 60% cash, and fixed interest for somebody who had 22 years left for retirement. So if you imagine, had we not had this conversation, and you'd imagine that the average advisor would say, let's pump up those numbers for the equity. You've got the time horizon for it, based off a brief conversation. They clearly have the willingness and the comfortableness. I don't know what the word is for that. They were happy to take on a bit more risk with the volatility. And that was a half an hour conversation. And had she not had that conversation with a financial advisor and left it for 22 years, I can't remember who said it, but I've definitely heard it referred to for your pension, on when you're choosing the fund, as the 6-figure button. Because if you click the wrong button, it's probably going to affect you by that amount of money, really. So yeah, just those little things I think you've got to appreciate that we have on people that we take for granted. Not many people know much about the kind of stuff we do, but we speak among ourselves, and it's bloody obvious. Of course, we need to put the level of equity up.
I found that this weekend. Like, I went to a hen do from one of my friends last week, and even just sat there, and as soon as someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" and I say, "I'm a financial advisor," they automatically, like, we got into this conversation, and I don't know how we came onto pensions, but we did, of course. And yeah, they were all kind of saying, "Oh, but you need to have loads of money," and I was like, "I'm going to stop you all right there. Like, that isn't the case." And actually, luckily, my friend whose hender it was, we'd already had this conversation about looking at her pension, so she was able to kind of like say actually, girls, you do need to look at this. And we delved into that, and all of I'll be honest, like, the ladies around me, they were teachers, they were support staff at school, or nurses, or whatever. They all came from working backgrounds, but because they weren't high net worth individuals, they didn't think that they could speak to a financial advisor. And I said, well, you've all got pensions from your previous jobs. And one lady I was talking to, she said, oh, I had like four or so that really, I don't know what they're doing, or even if they're any good or whatever. And I said, well, you've got more than 30 years to be in these funds. You really should be making sure that they're working hard for you. I think I said, I joked away, I joked with all the ladies when I was leaving. I said, I think I've just walked away with 5 new clients, and if not more. But that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes when you are just sitting, having a conversation with some friends, over a couple of proseccos, whatever, obviously the fizzy kind, and and yeah, you kind of can get talking about the fact that what we can actually help with, and it's really interesting having those conversations with people. And we've spoken about it before, haven't we, about knowing what an accountant does, and knowing what a solicitor does, but not really knowing what a financial advisor does. And it was a really great conversation. But yeah, sometimes it is just that start, isn't it? Just having that quick chat with somebody to then go, did you know, have you thought about this, or have you looked at that?
I think that's a really good point in the sense that we've talked about how busy we can all be, and I personally don't think being busy is a trait to be proud of. It's just means you're working a bit too hard, a bit like a busy fool. You've got to be efficient in the work you do. But importantly, that you might have a discovery call with someone where you spent 20 minutes on them and thought, oh, that was a bit of a waste of time. I haven't really done much. But from their point of view, they've gained some invaluable knowledge that will hopefully help them out for the better. And if you're having 10 of those meetings a week and you're thinking, oh God, I've only really converted, one client this week, you've actually spoken to 9 other people that really benefited from speaking from that conversation. And it's so easy to overlook those things.
Yeah, I mean, like those. Sorry, go on.
No.
As I was saying, like even those 5 or 6 other girls that I was talking to at that hen do, they were all shocked, and so therefore now they're probably going to go and sit down the pub with their friends, or chat to their mum on the weekend and say, oh, I was talking about this the other day, and I didn't realise that a financial advisor can do this or that, and and then hopefully they say you should probably have a chat with Anna. But it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, hopefully that's where you kind of want that to happen. You might not be able to help that person there and then, but they'll remember you and they'll remember that conversation, and hopefully one day they'll come back when they do need you, or when they have spoken to a family member and said, oh, I know that someone might be able to help with that. I remember that conversation at that hen do.
Yeah,
it's that sort of like web of referrals. And I always think that those conversations you have with someone, I mean, I know we've talked about before, but we had an influx of people with final salaries and things like that where, you can't always help. And those sort of conversations are always the ones where you feel like you're adding the most benefit, and they're not even a client, because you're actually helping someone understand something. But also, they know that you're willing to help people, and it ends up normally leading to a referral somewhere down the line. But it's that sort of thing where you can't measure it, but eventually if you speak to enough people and say the right things and do the right thing, eventually it'll come round.
Or you'll get their lump sum.
Yeah.
It is hard though, isn't it, to differentiate yourself sometimes between, being a business owner and having to build a business, but also really just wanting to help everybody. Because you're right, sometimes you can sit there and think, God, I'm so busy this week. Do I really have the time to have this conversation with somebody about their pension that I can't get anything from, essentially? But there's a fine line between being able to actually kind of go, do you know what? There is going to be that reward for me, because I'm going to feel so satisfied knowing that they understand that pension. And it's kind of being able to have that flexibility of wanting to just help everybody, but also to be able to build a business, right? Because we can't do everything for free, but also you do want to kind of sit and just help as many people as you can. So it is hard to try and find that balance sometimes.
Definitely.
I think that's a really good place to end. No, that's really good. It's been an episode dogged by poor internet, and if this podcast ever gets monetized, the first thing it's going to pay for is high speed internet for us, because I've spent half of it. We'll be able to see half of you, and also just talking to myself as well. Yeah, we've got that to look forward to. So if you do want to improve the quality of this lovely podcast, please subscribe, please follow, leave us a review, and also leave some questions as well. We had our first one today, so we're looking to cover that in the next episode. So please keep us busy. Ask us all the questions you want to know that we think that we may have the answer to, but don't hold that as gospel. And we really look forward to speaking with you in the next episode. So until then, thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.